I was 10 years old when I became obsessed with a mystery. I remember my grandfather told it to me. He was a cheery, traditional Irish Catholic from Jersey, whose laugh was just as infectious as his stories about the Korean War, in which case he spent all of his time in Germany, doing paperwork and drinking gourmet beer. Despite loving him dearly, I never wanted to be caught alone with him in the same room, mostly because under all his cheeriness was that baseline old-fashionedness to him, which typically came out when he'd been drinking. He was never cruel, don't get me wrong, but even at 10, I could sense this subtle shift in tone. The comments that after each sip of beer became a bit more racist, a tad more misogynistic. And when it was just himself and I was the only one to absorb this old-fashioned bigotry without my parents or other family members as buffers. Of course, at that time, I wasn't thinking of things this way. I just knew that the line, "and that's why I'll never have a doctor," made my stomach quail slightly. My grandpa was never so obviously set in his ways than when the alcohol hit him. But I remember one particular family Christmas Eve party, after the dinner had been devoured and the kids were waiting to open only a few gifts. I found myself alone in the living room with him. "Joshi," he said from a chair in the corner. "You ever heard of the Russian mountain mystery?" Without saying a word, I shook my head and plopped down on the couch. That's when he relayed the details of his mystery, and trust me, he had a way of telling stories when he got going. And as a bonus, this particular one barely had any racist side remarks. As I listened to him tell this tale, I could feel the need to know more bloom within. By the time he finished, I was enraptured with this thing. And even when my mom called me to open some presents, I couldn't shake the story from my head. The mystery was the famed Dyatlov Pass incident, and if you don't know anything about it, I suggest you look into it. It's fascinating. And although some aspects of the mystery have cleared up since I was a kid, it's still a pretty baffling tale. Well into my adulthood, it was my favorite unexplained puzzle, and I loved introducing it to friends and peers who'd never heard of it before. For a while, it was the cream of the crop of mysteries. Until the Shenandoah Incident, and all the events that followed in and around Block Island. Yellow, Tara Burns, the Sleepwalkers, all of it. The other mysteries don't hold a candle to it. There are still so many questions, so much grief without closure. It still feels as if the whole community is teetering at the edge of a precipice. Who can help us? Steer us towards the safety of the lighthouse. So far, I've shared all I can about the happenings on Block Island that began in May 2017. You've heard from Tara Burns, Detective Summers, Marion O'Yellow, and more. I've attempted to piece together all I've learned in a cohesive, logical string of reportings. But the fact of the matter is people have died, and may continue to do so. Something has settled into all of us here on the island, like a poisonous gas, invisible but slowly wreaking havoc. In an attempt to understand what has happened in the past year, I've asked around to islanders and non-islanders alike to see what their opinions are. I've received some pretty interesting responses, explanations on what could be happening to us. One of these responders is none other than Charlie Ren, the sole survivor of the Shenandoah Incident, who had some harrowing news for me. I've also gotten various mysteries and conspiracy theories from, well, all around the world, it seems, and how these might connect to the happenings on Block Island. I want to take the time to share these responses with you now. Earlier this year, I connected with a professor at a small liberal arts college in, believe it or not, Collegeville, Pennsylvania. She offered some interesting context regarding this past year's events on Block Island. Her name is Helen Barker, and for the past 14 years, she's taught ancient studies, the study of ancient civilization, religion, language, literature, you name it. As she herself likes to tell her students, if it's old, I know all about it. Apart from teaching, Barker spent years researching the deepest recesses of certain ancient cultures, more specifically those in northwestern Europe.
Okay, typically Mesopotamia, Egypt, Rome, Greece, these are the sexiest of the cultures to study, the ones that get all the attention, and they're very much a part of the curriculum. You know, a lecture hall full of college freshmen wanting to learn about mummies or what it means when we say Latin is a dead language, those kinds of things. By the way, to address the latter, Latin isn't dead, just had children, Spanish, French. Well, you know the rest. Recently, I've been fascinated by the people who lived in what is now modern-day Scotland and Britain. My favorite part of the job is teaching about the ancient stuff. The cultures who thrived before written human language was, as we know it, was even in its infancy.
Helen's fascination with ancient cultures seems to run in the family. Her brother, Jeffrey Barker, also makes a living in the past.
Yeah, Jeff's a philologist. He studies classical languages. And he's pretty damn close to being fluent in most. Latin, Greek, Hebrew.
Hebrew, wow.
Yeah, he's impressive, although I have to take care never to tell him that.
Your secret's safe with me. So, how do you qualify something as ancient?
There's no set criteria, and in general, there's a lot of conjecture in my field. I tell my students what my professor told me when I was in school. To determine whether or not something is truly ancient or not, you have to establish a baseline first. In other words, it all depends upon the subject, whether it's an object or a structure, and what it is being compared to, and who's doing the comparison. For example, at my school, we have a building erected in 1851. To some, that's ancient, but in modern-day Rome, as we know it, they have structures built thousands of years ago.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But, for simplicity's sake, I'd say anything made or existing before 2,000 to 3,000 years ago is generally considered truly ancient. But ancient? 7,500 years or more, if we're talking about humankind. In my book, anyway.
What is it about Northwestern Europe that fascinates you? And why do you think you have some insights into the events on Block Island?
It's hypothesized that, compared to other regions, Northern Europe could have been a late bloomer for human settlement, with initial settlings by early peoples happening roughly 11,000 years ago. The sweeping trend of agriculture didn't even reach this area until much, much later, due to a plethora of circumstances that I won't bore you with. But anthropological findings from this region have fascinated me for some time. It seems as if the people who lived there uncovered something.
Uncovered something? Like what?
Well, if I knew exactly, there'd be no need for our conjecture here. But from whatever sources I've been able to dig up, it changed the people profoundly. There were hints of it in their culture, subtle, but for someone like me or Jeff, they reveal a lot. I began looking at the lifestyles of people who lived in that region, roughly 1,000 years after the last ice age. I could understand many things about their way of life, their tools, their diets. Then I noticed a curious pattern of imagery appearing in many artifacts. It took me a bit to put two and two together, but the imagery became so prevalent that I couldn't ignore it.
What sort of imagery?
Well, for one, images of what I initially thought were some kind of ritual. On the walls of caves, etched in stone tools and decorative objects, it depicted a gathering of people, always in a storm of some kind, either snow or ash. But what was particularly interesting about the images was the people were not crowded around a central object or a person. The figures are usually walking in some sort of line or other formation, usually close to a body of water, and their heads, some of them, are bowed, while others are depicted as fixated toward the sky. There's a strange serenity to it all, actually.
And these images just appeared at a certain time?
Correct. There's a noticeable shift where suddenly this ritual seems to dominate. What's more, I had Jeff take a look at some other findings. One in particular, one that is supremely rare from that time period. Writing.
Writing? In what language?
I couldn't tell you. I don't think it has a name. Jeff was enthralled with the challenge, though, and began to assemble what he thought was a rough translation, though it was only a handful of words.
What was the writing about?
Well, the more Jeff and I dug into things, we believe somehow the people had a specific shared mental experience.
A shared mental experience.
That's right. But this seemed different somehow. It seems that it was cyclical in nature, becoming frequent enough for use to become a part of their art and apparently writing, though records are extremely sparse.
Wait, I'm sorry, like telepathy?
Sort of. That is why my students call me Fringe. So, well, we're not sure what was being communicated, only that it was a profound enough event that occurred across several generations. Based on what we studied, it wasn't so much telepathy, but more like, as it is depicted and written about, a vision. The closest comparison is, okay, imagine that a few times a year, an entire community of people have the same dream.
That's... what sort of dream? Are there any descriptions of it?
It was very hard to get any clear answers.
Yeah, that seems to be a theme lately here.
Well, I have something, but here's the thing. I believe the individual who wrote this ancient record of these events was one of the few who didn't experience it. And what's more, they were ill, very ill.
How do you know that?
We worked out a description, or what we believe was a description, of suffering, prolonged and acute, likely an infection, which in those times was common. People didn't know what infections were. They just knew that one day someone was fine and the next they weren't. Of course, illness was often attributed to divine punishment.
So this individual was sick and believed that they were being punished by the heavens and therefore weren't allowed to participate in this communal dream?
That's right. So I've tried to imagine it from their perspective. One night, everyone you've ever known, your family, friends, suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and walk toward the ocean without saying a word, carrying various trinkets and tools from their homes. I mean, sleepwalking is a pretty common biological occurrence, but imagine being alive at that time, seeing something like that, and not knowing.
And worse, thinking you were doomed by the gods.
Precisely.
Professor, I'm assuming you heard about the incident that occurred on Block Island last year? The sleepwalking?
Oh, yes. Now you know why I contacted you.
So you think they could be related?
Well, I don't see a reason not to entertain the idea. The similarities are striking. Also, if it was apparently a repeat event in ancient times, isn't it reasonable to assume something like that could happen again?
Professor Barker's observations of the ancient peoples of northern and northwestern Europe gave me a new perspective on the happenings on Block Island, this time through an academic lens. At the end of my conversation with Professor Barker, she remembered something she hadn't told me in the strange writings about the dream ritual. When I asked her what she said, it was her belief that the writing suggested that after each sleepwalking occurrence, people were, quote, taken away to the stars.
Or sky, heavens, you get the point. People went missing. Just like in Block Island.
Sometime after my call with Professor Barker, I began to reanalyze everything that had happened during the sleepwalking incident. Who was involved, how many, what their behavior was like. Revisiting it only made me lose more sleep, knowing how closely things matched up to the ancient communal dreams Professor Barker had talked to me about. I tried coming up with my own theories. Maybe they were all tripping on shrooms, I thought. Plenty of cultures throughout history experimented with and incorporated powerful psychedelics into their culture. But the more digging I did, I realized that typically cultures living outside of jungles, like those in South America and the Amazon, had any exposure to psychedelics due to the particular abundance of psychedelic mushrooms and substances like ayahuasca, which contains the very powerful psychedelic DMT. There were also no reports of groups of people suddenly disappearing. Nothing seemed to add up. Shortly after my call with Barker, I got an email from a man named Simon Taus in Mojave County, Arizona. The subject line read, "The Hum finds Block Island." The body of the email was short, simply reading, "Dear Mr. Boho, I have heard your reportings on Block Island. The people on that ferry will not be found. Have you heard the hum? If not, you will. I'd like to talk. Simon T." I want to say that I hesitated before calling him. I didn't. I called him right away. And right away, he answered.
Hello? Simon speaking.
Hi, Mr. Taus? It's,
Call me Simon, please.
Sure, yeah. Hi, Simon. So yeah, it's Josh Boho. I'm calling from Block Island.
Boho. Hang on a moment, please. Hello? Sorry about that. This is Josh Boho from The Sound.
That's the one.
I sent you an email.
Yeah, I'm calling to follow up on that, actually. Kinda ominous email, man. What What the hell do you know?
Well, I know what was happening on Block Island has happened before, all right? They don't want us to know, but it has and I've been there. It's the hum.
Yeah, the hum. Could you explain that to me?
Can I explain it? Fuck, only completely. The thing is, with the hum, there's a lot of fakes out there, so I got to be real diligent when I look into these things. Some people just have ear problems, can't avoid it, but that's not the same type of hum I'm talking. I'm talking about the hum. Whether you know it by Bristol or Windsor or whatever, it's one and the same.
I see. So, can you hear this hum?
No, thank God. But my sister did.
Jesus, I'm sorry, man.
Josh Boho,
Please, Josh is fine.
Look, Josh, if there is anyone who knows what you folks on that island are going through, it's me.
Tell me what you know, Simon. As it turns out, Simon Taus is quite the traveler. Although he's lived in Arizona for the past 3 years, before that he was in Portland, Oregon for 5 months, and before that he almost lived a year in Finland, backpacking to other neighboring countries, Norway, Sweden, parts of Russia, before turning his sights to Asia, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Northern Africa. As Simon would describe it, he has 2 jobs. For one, he's made a modest living as an illustrator for graphic novels. He even has a small agent located out of Boston. He's neither rich nor famous, though the money is enough and the flexibility of the job allows him to do what has become his main priority: to follow the hum. His older sister Mia, whom he greatly admired, began to describe hearing this strange phenomenon shortly before she went missing in 2001. She was barely 23 years old. Simon was 17. According to him, wherever the hum goes, trouble follows.
It's this sort of low frequency. Each listener hears it at varying levels. Most studies report this range from 32 hertz to 80 hertz, and this is consistent around the world. Study after study, and no one can seem to target what it is, only that some of us hear it and, well, most of us don't.
And does it hurt them, or?
No. In fact, there's a lot of fiction out there regarding what this hum is. Very Hollywood stuff, like the noise driving people to madness, causing them to harm other people or themselves, things like that. Sure, the hum is a nuisance, and it's especially disturbing to sleep patterns. Rarely, some people sell their homes because if the constant hum is too bothersome, but otherwise I can assure you that it's not the hum that's the problem. It's what comes after.
And what's that?
I think the hum is a harbinger. It's the call. And those that follow, although they don't seem to have a choice, disappear without a trace. Not everyone goes, though. Only some. It's like some people are only tuned into it for a time, but are able to break free. Others stay tuned into the frequency, and eventually...
You have examples of this? Of people hearing the hum and then disappearing?
Oh, yes. Let's see. Arnau Torres, 61, lived in Wales, began complaining of chronic migraines and hearing a persistent humming. His primary care doctor chalked it up to a neurological disturbance. Disappeared in 2003. Pamela Salmon, 34, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, reported hearing the hum as early as age 15. Both her and her German Shepherd Willard went missing, never to show again. Dante Sheffield, 7, never got off the bus from school. People assumed kidnapping, body never showed. Amanda Corning, Lance Sykes, Sophie Figueroa, Greg Boone, Finn Fisher, Gene Sato, Harry Lenfrey, Quincy Abbott, Ezra Lennox, Trevor Kleinwood, Paula Cord, Alexa James, George Harvey, Loa Tin, Thomas Elgort.
Hey, Simon, wow. Yeah, wow, that's a lot of names.
And Mia Taus.
Simon, earlier you said they don't want us to know about it. Who is they? Can you tell me?
The big guns, Big Brother, the emperors, the good old governments. They keep things buried. Lots of closets. Lots of skeletons.
Can you confirm?
Jesus, Josh, not over the phone. I'll email you later. Look, I've been at this for a long time, Josh. I know the signs. I know the places. I know when the hum comes to a place, it changes it. That's what's happening to Block Island. The hum's got it.
A lot of people have disappeared or have been hurt. We just want answers.
I know it. You know what's funny? The more I dig into this, the more years I spend traveling land and sea to chase this thing, or however you want to look at it. I'm starting to envy those people who followed the hum all the way. The ones who caught up.
The people who went missing? I'm sorry. You're jealous of them? Although his anti-government paranoia turned me off just a bit, there was something to his claims and his clearly extensive research that made me trust him. Call it intuition, I guess. Or idiocy. He did end up following up via email, many of them, actually, sending me files and reports on the hum, some of which were test reports of the studies done throughout the years on subjects who report hearing the hum. Sometimes Simon got pretty specific. Like in this email. In 2006, Dr. Thomas James Marr, who taught at Massey University in Auckland, New Zealand, recorded the so-called Auckland hum that had been plaguing some of the city residents. He recorded it at a house in Glenfield, a North Shore suburb of Auckland. One of his students, Nair Tuzi, acted as Dr. Marr's ears, as she could hear the hum. Dr. Marr's conclusions, though some dispute, found that the hum was at about 56 hertz. I appreciate the numbers. I just didn't have the heart to tell him that they don't really tell me or anyone anything. Other times, his emails were less fact and more rant. So that's why the dismissal by many medical professionals, obviously brainwashed, government slaves, that the humming is tinnitus or simply an overactive cognitive focus of background noise or whatever the fuck is bullshit. Okay, I acknowledge that not every Joe Schmo who claims to hear a humming noise is hearing my hum. Of course not. In fact, most aren't. That's my point, Josh. The hum is more selective than people think. I just wish people would open their goddamn eyes, or ears, I guess, LOL, and accept that not everything can be explained yet. Why can't they do that? Why? We don't know it all. We don't know anything. We just don't. Taos' hum is compelling, and it's as good as any explanation for what's happening, except it isn't. Not an explanation, I mean. If this really is the hum, and it's come to Block Island, what is it, and why is it? What does it want? If it even wants in the first place. Where do people who, in the words of Simon Taos, follow the hum all the way go? I haven't heard from Simon in a little bit. In his last email to me, he wrote, Josh, I've been thinking. All this talk about Block Island, and I've just realized I've never been. Another place to add to my list? Maybe I should take a trip over there. You can buy me a beer. I'd like to scope things out. I'm not sure I've heard of a place where the hum has made itself so deeply at home. Let me know your thoughts. Follow all the way or die trying, right? Simon. P.S. Out of this world, out of this world. I've spent a long time trying to decide what the hell he meant by that last line. To be honest, it gave me the creeps, especially the way it was written. Out of this world, with parentheses around of this world. Then again, out of this world. Knowing Simon, he was probably just trying to send what he thought was some clever encoded message or something to hide from Big Brother. Simon never came to the island, at least to my knowledge. He never reached out again. The bizarre words of his postscript still follow me, the way he follows the hum. An unwanted mantra, a fragment of some grander scheme or revelation. Out of this world, of this world, out of this world. So, you remember that Russian mystery I told you about? The Dyatlov Pass incident? Fun fact, a lot of people know about it. There's a certain obsession around it, actually. See, when I began seeking out answers about the happenings on Block Island, I mostly went to authority figures for answers, like Detective Summers, Mayor Burke, doctors. But I realized that mostly these people were just as baffled by things as I was. I wasn't a lone ranger here, surveying the open ocean, brass spyglass in hand, nothing to show for my efforts but vast blue. No. This was a community, right? I mean, we're all in this vastness together. So I began asking folks on the island for what they believed was happening. And some answers I expected. Others I did not. Hello, this is Josh Boho.
Yeah, you the guy from The Sound?
That's me.
I heard you've been asking around for theories about like the disappearances and the sleepwalking stuff around here.
I am. Do you have any...
Of course I do. Don't you see? This is the Rapture. Some folks are being saved. Some folks are being left behind to deal with their sins. God doesn't seem too happy with Block Island, and that's where those ferry people went.
Uh-huh. So it just so happened that everyone on the Shenandoah ferry were faithful except for one, so they all got to go to heaven?
God works in mysterious ways.
Eesh, I didn't even have time to ask which denomination I needed to convert to be saved. But naturally, I received a lot of calls about God. God's saving us. God's abandoning us. The island's been cursed by God. The faithful were on a goddamn roll. But the more people contacted me, the further reaching our story seemed to get. I'm sorry, where did you say you were from, ma'am?
I'm from Christian County, Kentucky. Proud of it.
Oh, wow, that's a long way off from Block Island. How did you hear about our events?
I saw it on the TV. It's becoming some big news. The missing ferry and the town full of people sleepwalking on the beach.
Whoa, okay. Well, to what do I owe this pleasure, ma'am?
You ever hear of the Hopkinsville goblins?
Not exactly, no.
You might want to look into it. Back in 1955, a family was attacked by what I believe were aliens. They had to defend their home for hours before going to the police. They saw lightning streak in the sky and then, boom, invasion. Sounds like you folks might have a goblin problem.
Believe it or not, that was one of 2 calls I got regarding goblins. After a bit, I received my first international call. It was from a Spanish architect named Alan Figueres, who relayed an eerily similar story.
I had a very vivid dream last year. In it, I was trying to build a large bridge over the Mediterranean. It was going to be the tallest bridge of its kind, spanning across the sea to northern Africa. In the dream, I remember this especially well, I was frantic, buzzing almost. I was running all over the town, it felt like, scrambling to get the materials. But I was by myself for some reason. Then I woke up, on the beach.
Wait, so you were sleepwalking?
That's right. When I came to, I was on the beach. Nobody else was around, and the water, though it was at least 50 feet away, looked covered in ice. But I couldn't quite tell, no matter how long I stared, if it was actually moving or not. But I was so frightened, I ran away from that place. When I got home, I was shaken up. I had a frightful headache, and I couldn't get that bridge out of my head. It was like I'd been given instructions.
So the calls and emails kept coming. A chaotic mess of voices shouting theory after theory. Usually folks started with the same exact question. Have you heard of the Jersey Devil? Have you heard of the Alaskan Triangle? Have you heard of the Skinwalkers? You've heard of zombies, right? Have you heard of the SS Orang Medan mystery? That ship disappeared too. I had one man who seemed to have forgotten why he called in the first place. This is Josh Boho. How can I help you?
How are they?
Hello? Excuse me. Sir? Are you calling in regards to the goings-on on the island? Sir? Hello? Recently, I received a call from someone who, to be quite honest, I'd forgotten about. In the sea of frantic voices and countless conspiracies, I'd forgotten about the one person who was there from the beginning, who'd brushed up against the hum, had survived the goblins, returned from the nightmare unscathed, whatever that means. The witness who saw nothing, Charlie Ren. It was 10:32 p.m. when I got the call. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered, and there he was, Charlie, sounding himself, but tired. He told me he had some news for me. Thinking his inconvenient amnesia regarding what happened on the Shenandoah had somehow lifted, I asked him if I could record our conversation, as I'd been recording most of my phone conversations these days. He said sure. Charlie, hey, Yeah, how have you been? Did did Detective Summers tell you to give me a call or?
No, she didn't. I'm doing okay considering.
Huh? Are you back on the island or?
No, I'm back home. I don't know if I ever go back, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, understandable. It's been I mean, it's crazy. I've never seen the community so shaken.
Yeah, I can imagine. I also don't know if I'll be coming back because well, I'm sick. Really,
You-
really sick.
Uh, wow, Charlie, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, what kind of sick? Like,
There's a growth on my brain.
Jesus, Charlie, when? How did?
A month ago, I'd been having problems for a while. It's been years since I've bothered to see a primary care doc, yet alone a specialist. But then one day the headaches got so bad and I wasn't walking straight, so I went to urgent care. I was next thing I know, I was off to see a specialist after that. Didn't take long to find it. MRI was a mess.
God, fucking damn it.
They told me it's been growing steadily for 2.5 years now. Funny, huh? Never even suspected until recently. You know what else is funny? The morning before I got my diagnosis, I'd just woken up from a dream where my sister, no lie, told me that I was fucked up in the head. I didn't think she meant this.
So what's the treatment plan? Are you?
I just wanted to call and say that I'm sorry
You're sorry?
for not having any information for that detective or for you or for anyone else. It's fucked me up since it happened. I mean, I was there on the boat. I must have seen something. How did I miss so much? Why the hell was I left? What?
Charlie, hey, look, man.
What was the point?
It's okay. You know, you can't help it. All of us are confused, you know? Just don't let a case of survivor's guilt mess you up.
It's way too late for that anyway. I'm not interested in getting into anything. I just wanted to let you know that I'm sorry I was no help. I'm sorry every day for that.
Honestly, me too.
I'm probably gonna go off grid for a bit. Do some traveling while I can. I don't know, but I just do yourself a favor, Boho.
Yeah, what's that?
Be careful not to follow this into oblivion. I respect what you're doing. I know how you feel. I know how it becomes an obsession, but at some point or another, you have to let her go. You have to let it go.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Sure, man. Thank you.
Take care. Goodbye.
You too, Charlie. Bye. So, I guess Charlie Ren didn't escape unscathed after all. He was doomed by the gods. Maybe we all are. You know, for my whole life, I've been intrigued by mystery. The thrill of it, of unanswered questions, of old artifacts, the fun of the research involved. I still remember that spark within the night my grandpa told me his Russian mountain mystery. But something's changed now. This is different. This wasn't exactly my idea of fun. Especially now that the only piece of clear news was that a very young man was now dying of a brain tumor. The man who was supposed to be the lucky one.
Not all mysteries are fun. After the bummer of a phone call with Charlie, I decided to distract myself and pick up some takeout from a new place in town selling $15 lobster rolls. I had heard they were out of this world.
This has been The Ferry, a production of the LittleFire Podcast Network, in association with Tongal. The Ferry is edited by Seth Marquis. Sound recording by Jared Mann and Aaron Miller. Executive produced by James DiGiulio. Produced by Chris Revel. Written by Aidan LaLiberty and Raz Cunningham. If you want to learn more about Tongal and the creative opportunities available, visit tongal.com for more information.